I want to ask you something. Do you remember picking up the phone and saying working to check your neighbour wasn't already on the line? Because I can remember that. And if that means absolutely nothing to you, this video probably isn't for you unless you want a little history lesson. But if you just smiled and thought, yes, I remember that, then pull up a chair because we're going to go on a little trip. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Leslie. Welcome to my channel. I recently retired and I share this chapter of life, the retirement reality, the unexpected reflections, and occasionally, like today, a wander back through the decades that made us who we are. We had a party line, one shared phone line between neighbours. You picked up the receiver, said working to check no one else was on, and then you made your call. Privacy was not guaranteed, let me just say that, and discretion was absolutely essential. And speaking of phones, if you left the house, nobody could reach you. I mean, unheard of these days. Not a soul. You were simply gone, unreachable. And it was one of life's greatest luxuries. I don't think we appreciated it as a luxury now, but looking back, it was definitely a luxury. And nobody expected you to respond within 30 seconds. Nobody sent a follow-up message saying, "Did you see my message?" You were just out. Can you imagine that freedom now? Then there was the radio. Sunday night, top 100. And I can always remember, probably from about 20 down, I was already in bed and I'd be laying there quietly in the dark, listening to the final countdown. And I'd be waiting with my cassette player ready, finger on the record button, waiting for my favourite song. And the DJ would talk right over the very end, every single time. The absolute devastation of that moment cannot be overstated. And then cassette tapes themselves. We didn't just play them. When they were playing up, we would pop them open, blow on them, do whatever. If the tape snapped, we'd have to try and fix them. Or if the tape came out of the cassette, we'd use our little finger to wind them back in and hope for the best. Or if the battery on the cassette player was starting to fade, we'd use a pencil to wind it up to save on the battery. Television stopped broadcasting at night. There was a dot, then nothing, literally nothing else to watch. The message was very clear, go to bed. And I think that used to be at about 10 o'clock. I mean, people just didn't stay up late those days. There was no streaming, no next episode, and definitely no binge watching. No choosing what you wanted when you wanted it. You had to settle for what was just on. And Saturday mornings, oh my gosh, Saturday mornings were made for cartoons. Cartoons and Noel Edmonds and Blobby, his best friend. And you watch what was on. And when it was on, there was no pausing, no rewinding, no choosing another episode. You were there at the right time or you missed it entirely. Now, some of the other things I think back and can remember, during the summer, we would leave the house at 6 in the morning to be picked up by the local farmer for strawberry picking. And it was a full day's work. We could eat as many strawberries as we wanted and fill our lunch boxes to take home. Of course, we did get a little bit of money for what we were doing. We weren't picking for free because we filled our crates up. But there were no mobile phones. No one was telling us to use sun cream or drink water or stay in the shade. Just see you when you get home. And then there was those hot sunny days in the garden, smothering yourself in baby oil and squeezing lemon on our hair to try and get highlights. And we'd get to drink directly from the hosepipe when we were thirsty. We didn't have plastic bottles that we used to take outside with us or glasses. It literally was to drink out of the hosepipe. And we survived it all, which really is quite a miracle when you think about today's standards and all the nannying that goes on. Thursday night were top of the pops. You watched whatever was on, whoever was on, whether you liked them or not. And a really good outing for the weekend, which everyone looked forward to, was going 10-pin bowling. Saturday night was Morecambe and Wise, or Saturday night at the London Palladium, and later Michael Parkinson's show. And he had some good guests. Michael Parkinson introduced the whole concept of a talk show. and it was family night in front of the television. We only had one TV, so we all had to agree. No arguments about what to watch because there was nothing to argue about. And if we decided we were going to argue, we were sent to our room. So we were all watching the same thing in the same room together. Then there were the road trips. Oh gosh, and did my dad like road trips? He loved driving up and down the country. And we never had a little blue dot telling us where we were. But belting out was on whatever was on the 8-track player. Charlie Pride, Nancy Sinatra and Lee Hazelwood, Kenny Rogers, Dolly Parton, whatever our parents loaded up, and they loved country music. And we sang along because there was nothing else to do. And with 3 of us on the back seat, my younger sister sitting in the middle, and nobody was allowed to touch anybody, the best thing to do was just to keep singing. And we had road maps, those old-fashioned folded road maps. It wasn't the big atlas books, it was actually maps. And I can still remember having them across our knee while we were trying to direct my dad to wherever he should be going. I do remember a particular occasion in France when we were doing that. And I can still fold one properly, one of those folded road maps, which is apparently a skill that is quietly dying out. I still look at a road map now to get my bearings when I'm going somewhere, not a road map as a folded road map, but in a book. So it puts things into perspective. And it's rather than just seeing the next turn on my mobile phone, because quite often I miss that next turn. I don't know. Me and GPS, not always on the same page. But we got photos developed, waited days for them, paid good money for them. And then we opened the envelope to find that half of them were blurry, someone had their eyes closed, and at least one of them had someone's thumbprint across the front. And we still put them in the photo album. And it's so much better getting out a photo album, even now, than going to my phone to look at what I've got in the cloud. Up there. No, it's not up there. It's wherever the data center is and the photos are stored. But I don't spend hours poring over my iCloud account looking at pictures, but I still do get my photograph albums out. And the kids used to love it when they were younger. Drink driving was treated like, I've only had a couple. It was a casualness that was somehow considered a reasonable assessment. Of course, we do know better now, and that's a good thing. But it's worth remembering how recently that change happened. But I'm glad it has. And I'm glad, if nothing else, my kids are responsible when it comes to drink driving. They drive, they don't drink. Now, the other thing that I have fond memories of is the girls' toilets at school, and they had 2 purposes. Of course, going to the toilet was one, but the other one was smoking cigarettes out of the window while one person stood lookout. And I'm not saying that it was right, I'm just saying that it happened. Don't know if it happens in school these days. Maybe they're still smoking cigarettes behind the bicycle shed, who knows? Now here's where I want to get a little more serious, because underneath the party lines, the cassette tape surgery, there are 2 things I genuinely miss. The first is just dropping in on people. Somewhere along the way, knocking on someone's door without texting first has become practically a criminal offence. We've replaced spontaneous human contact with scheduled appointments and pre-agreed visit windows. And I really think we've lost something with that. But I decided to do something about it this week. I have new neighbours, not next door, but they're diagonally across the street. And instead of waiting, they've just moved in, and instead of waiting and wondering whether it was the right moment or whether they'd think it was odd, I just walked across and knocked on the door. I introduced myself, welcomed them to the neighbourhood, and most importantly, let them know I have 2 cats, because I do worry about Winston and Lizzie now the road out there is getting a little bit busier. And I needed to warn them as well, because Lizzie and Winston may occasionally consider their garden an extension of their own territory. And it's best to know where they can send them home to if they do get a bit like that. And we chatted for about 10 minutes on the doorstep. It was lovely. Turns out we have more in common than I expected. Like me, they've downsized. Like me, they never imagined they'd end up in a new build. And the lady of the house works from home too, just like me. I also got to meet their 2 dogs, which Winnie and Linston will have opinions about in due course. I'm very sure of that. We agreed we would catch up over a coffee once the boxes were unpacked. I didn't mention I still have about a dozen boxes waiting in my own garage, considering I've been here since the beginning of December. But they're going to come out later at some point. But when I walked away from the doorstep, I'm really pleased I'd made the effort. It took a couple of minutes of mild awkwardness, and then it was absolutely worth it. That's what dropping in looks like, and we need to bring it back. And the second thing, and this one I've come to appreciate more as I get older, is a certain kind of friendship. The best friendships don't require constant contact. You can go weeks without talking, months even, and then you sit down together and pick up exactly where you left off. And no explanation is required. There's no guilt, no big catch-up session needed. You just slip back in like no time has passed at all. And I think that's wonderful. And if you have a friendship like that, hold on to it. It's one of the rarest and most valuable things there is. Now, the thing is, having talked about all these wonderful things from early on in my life, I wouldn't swap what we have today, not for a nanosecond, because the technology and the connection we have now have given me something I could never have imagined growing up. A few years ago, after losing my husband, after a period of my life I genuinely didn't know how to navigate, I started building something online, affiliate marketing. I'd never heard of it before. I didn't fully understand it at first, but I took one step, then another, and slowly started to build something. And I'm building it alongside my state pension. I have an online income that gives me choices, not a fortune, not a flashy lifestyle, just a little extra that means the pension isn't the only thing that I'm relying on. It's a side income that I've built myself in my own time. And much of it has been built from my kitchen table. And now I sit at my kitchen table. I don't always sit in my office here. I'm very fortunate to have an office to be working in, but I do still love sitting at the kitchen table. Patio doors are open and I can watch Lizzie and Winston wander in and out. And when those doors are open on a good day and the world feels very manageable, that's what the technology gives me, and I'm genuinely grateful for it. And we grew up without any of this. We managed just fine. But what we have now, when you use it well on your own terms, is actually quite wonderful. The thing is, we grew up in a world that was slower, simpler, and in many ways far less convenient than the one we live in now. And I have to say that everything that we have today is built for convenience. I think when I think back to the way we were as kids and young adults, the world is lazier than what it used to be. And I also think our generation carries something the younger ones are still figuring out. We know what it feels like to wait for something. We don't have that right of expectation. And we know what it feels like to be unreachable. Or the blurry photo is much better in a physical album than in the iCloud. And it can all mean much more than those ones on your phone. And we also know that sometimes the most exciting thing about Saturday mornings, then and now, is simply being there for it. That's not nothing, that's actually quite a lot. Drop in the comments which one of these resonated with you the most. And is there something from your childhood I haven't mentioned that deserves to be put on the list? I genuinely love to know. I'm sure there is. I mean, I'm sitting here now and I'm thinking of other things, but I've talked long enough today. I would just like to say that if you're interested in knowing how I got started online, the system that I used, that I was able to build my online business from, I'll drop the link in the comments. Have a look in your own time. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button to follow along with my journey. And hopefully I'll see you on the next one.